Friends into lovers. She fell first, he fell hard. Who's to say what this book's trope is truly meant to be? This is the 4th book and the 3rd season of the Bridgerton series, revolving around Colin Bridgerton, called Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. First, I'd like to discuss the Netflix series, and I'll probably do a follow-up on this particular video once the season comes out, comparing and offering my thoughts on that, but here is some information. Bridgerton has been renewed for season 3 and 4, so we have much to look forward to. We don't know what season 4 is focused on yet, but we do know that season 3 of Netflix's Bridgerton series is focusing on Colin and Penelope. It's set to be released in 2 parts. First part will premiere on May 16, and the second part will be on June 13 in 2024. We have a few official photos that were given to us of what we can expect in the season. Penelope sitting at the window in a baby blue gown. This could be after any number of balls or anything else. Colin outside the Bridgerton house, what looks like him coming back home from his travels. Colin and Penelope looking longingly at each other, what looks to be outside. And another one where it looks to be at a ball inside with different clothes. Colin is always in some sort of brown, and Penelope is always in some sort of baby blue. Some new photos were recently released, one of Colin holding what looks to be Lady Whistledown paper in a very angry state, a back hug between Anthony and Kate as the new Viscountess, a photo of Francesca, who's newly recast by Hannah Dodd, alongside Violet and Hyacinth. And finally, a photo of Colin and Penelope at a ball with Penelope's dance card empty and Colin's hand is bandaged up. We have a lot to look forward to and have been told that Queen Charlotte, the prequel series, will be referenced in the following season and every season following this 3rd season. We also got the privilege of seeing 2 sneak peek clips from season 3 of Bridgerton, and I'll be going ahead and discussing the contents of those clips at the end of my book analysis. As mentioned earlier, I will likely do a follow-up comparing the series to the books when they come out, and that's likely the case for all the other seasons as they come out, comparing to the books that I will be doing a little bit of a review and an analysis of. Now, onto the book which this season is based on. Hold on to your frocks. The book starts with Colin coming back into town from Cyprus. Some context: in Benedict's book, Colin was having a conversation with him and Anthony, upset about the fact that their mother teased him about marrying Penelope, and he said out loud he will never marry her. Penelope overheard this as she was leaving their residence from visiting Eloise, Lady Bridgerton, and Sophie. The statement that was overheard instigated a confrontation. Penelope was seen at the doorway when Colin said this, and Penelope said something along the lines of, "That was harsh, but my feelings aren't hurt. What are you apologizing for?" She proceeds to say, "I won't ever marry Benedict. See, when I say that, his feelings aren't hurt. If you don't want to marry me, that's fine. No one's forcing you to propose." Now, back to the present. It's 1824. Colin, as mentioned before, is back to London from his travels. He tends to travel a lot to avoid the marriage season every year, as suggested by Penelope close to when they first met. Penelope being so close to Eloise and her sister being friends with Hyacinth, they're at Bridgerton House very frequently, and Colin has been the most friendly to her out of all the Bridgerton boys. She fell for him almost immediately. Unlike Eloise, who has the occasional proposal she usually declines, Penelope gets no attention, and they seem to be on track to becoming spinsters together. Unlike the other love interests of the Bridgertons in the past, Penelope has been a passive character within all the books so far, so there isn't much backstory to go into other than how she and Colin met in the first place to establish that Lady Bridgerton encouraged her sons to interact with Penelope because not many people would. Since coming back into town, Colin notices more about Penelope that he hadn't before. Especially now that her mother isn't paying attention to her wardrobe. She lost a little bit of that baby weight and has more liberties speaking her mind, knowing most people don't pay attention to her anyway. Her actions are not going unnoticed. Colin, in other books, has been funny and witty. In his own book, his only defining character trait is that he's always hungry, and I hate that his character is one-dimensional. He's also very irrationally angry about Penelope's actions because he's feeling very protective of her, something most of the Bridgerton boys have in common. After a nice little interaction, Colin decides he's gonna attend a musical where he is certain Penelope will be there so he can keep an eye on her. And at the party, Lady Danbury starts a challenge of finding Lady Whistledown. In this challenge, Colin decides he figured out Eloise is Lady Whistledown because she always has ink all over her hands. We'll come to that in the next book. Penelope visits Eloise one day, and she isn't there, but Colin is. While waiting for him, she discovers his journals and takes a peek. Colin is very angry about this, and embarrassed, and also confesses that he has a suspicion about his own sister being Lady Whistledown. At this time, Penelope has a thought that she spits out asking Colin to kiss her, because she's never been kissed before, and with no prospects in high society, it's likely she'll never be kissed. Colin agrees and gives her a little smooch. She's very stiff, and because she didn't express enjoyment, Colin huffs off and leaves, leaving her very confused. Later on during the week, Colin notices Penelope getting into a carriage that isn't their family carriage from across the street at the Bridgerton house, and decides he's intrigued and chooses to follow her. We find out that Penelope is going to a church with a correspondence, and Colin approaches her upset that she's alone in a bad part of town and was claiming to be looking out for her safety, which Penelope responds with, "It's none of your business. You're not my husband, and leave me alone." Colin, in his rage, goes to see what the paper of the correspondence is and finds out it's a Lady Whistledown column to be published, declaring that Cressida's claim to be Lady Whistledown is false, and she has a reputation to uphold and doesn't want her to be known as this scandalous offer. At a very recent ball, Cressida had claimed to be Lady Whistledown in order to win Lady Danbury's challenge, and that very much upset Penelope. When Colin discovers what's happening, a few things run through his mind. First, he's shocked that Penelope is the author. Then he's really impressed with her writing, observations, discreetness, and then he concludes that nobody should know Penelope is behind the pen, because Whistledown has created enemies, and since she is not the most popular person of the ton, she has a higher chance of her reputation being dragged. He gets her into his carriage, and they take the long way to her home. He starts to lecture her, and she responds with the defense that this is her life's work and will not stand for anyone else to take credit for it, even if she's never to reveal her identity. She also expresses that there is no reputation of hers to protect. Nobody likes her, let alone acknowledges her existence, and on top of that, there aren't any suitors asking for her hand for the decade that she's been out in society. So this revealing her identity will not only not harm her reputation, it will not change it at all. Colin at this point is so angry with Penelope that she's not seeing his perspective, but also so mesmerized that Lady Whistledown, an accomplished gossip column author, is sitting right in front of him, and between his newfound admiration for her, the fact that he has a taste of her kiss, and the adrenaline of the day, he starts to seduce her. They are passionately making out in this carriage until it out of nowhere stops. So they gather themselves to deliver Penelope home in a presentable way, and then something comes over Colin. He decides he has to set his intentions straight and ask her mother for her hand. Then comes probably one of the funniest scenes in the entire book, something that makes up for the nonsense passing of this relationship. I really am looking forward to how they are going to accomplish this in the series. The Featheringtons have a family get-together on Tuesdays or something, so everyone is in the drawing room where Lady Featherington is. This includes Penelope's older sisters with their husbands, Felicity, and a few others. Colin is attempting to empty the room to ask Lady Featherington for Penelope's hand, but she seems to think he's intending on asking for Felicity's hand in marriage. Felicity sees what's happening, Penelope all stressed out and anxious, them holding hands. She's trying to leave the room suggested by Colin. Eventually, he blurts out he needs Penelope to stay and for everyone else in the room to leave. He finally gets Lady Featherington's blessing, and they proceed to plan a wedding. Now, Anthony holds an engagement ball for the couple, and for a touch more of some drama, we see the last Lady Whistledown paper being distributed during this ball, with everything that Penelope had intended to write back when Colin had discovered her. Her editor had some risky plans of their own. Colin, obviously furious with her, ends up grabbing Penelope, and they end up excusing themselves and sneaking away into Colin's bedroom, which Penelope realizes she's in for the very first time. After some lectures by Colin, he realizes truly how much he loves her, and they make love that night. The wedding gets pushed up a little, and it goes as planned. And one day, Penelope gets a visitor. It's Cressida. And she found out Penelope is Whistledown. She blackmails her for all the money to keep her secret. Colin retaliates by taking control of the situation by announcing that his wife is Lady Whistledown at the next ball that they are to attend. From then on, we see Penelope helping Colin achieve some life purpose by editing his travel journals to publish. Now, my thoughts. It's an intriguing story to be sure, but I don't like Colin as a character in his own book. He acts out of rage a lot, and Penelope seems very helpless. Also, for some reason, he is very hungry all the time, and in future books, that is one of the main parts of his character. Penelope is so in love with him, and she lets him do and say whatever he wants, and it really rubs me the wrong way. I know that Shonda Rhimes and her writing team really know how to polish up stories like this, and I truly can't wait to see what happens. Overall, it was a nice story. I like the idea of a blossoming friendship and seeing someone with new, fresh eyes. Not knowing how much in love you are with somebody until things in your life are threatened. Beautiful themes. We don't know exactly how it's going to be achieved in the series. Only time will tell. As mentioned earlier in this video, I will be doing a follow-up video on Colin's story in Season 3 of Bridgerton once everything comes out this summer. However, before that, I want to discuss the two clips that we were given. First of which was Penelope confronting Colin what looks outside of a ball. This particular clip I've seen already, and I know the context behind it all, but just for the clip that we received, I'll go ahead and explain what's happening and share my thoughts. We see Penelope coming out of the ballroom and Colin kind of following to make sure she's okay, asking if everything's all right between them, and then very snarkily saying that he misses her. To which Penelope responds with a very aggressive confrontation. In my opinion, it seems a little aggressive given her facial expression. She basically confronts him about what she overheard last season. Colin saying that never in a million years will he court Penelope Featherington. And not only was that disappointing, but it was extremely hurtful as somebody who is friends with him in the first place, seeing that her name is being dragged by a dear friend in front of other potential suitors. And this is a direct parallel, in my opinion, to that scene in Benedict's book where Colin was discussing his frustrations with his mother, constantly trying to get him on the marriage market, and he kept on refusing, coming up with things to say here and there, but eventually refusing to propose marriage or entertain a courtship with Penelope, discussing with his brothers, and Penelope overhears this. But instead, in the book, Penelope confronts him right away, and that probably had a huge damper on him. While in this, he said what he said, traveled the world, came back and thought everything was fine and dandy, only to hear Penelope has overheard something, probably out of context, might I add, and is upset at him because of this. For all those people saying that they should have done Benedict's book before they've done Colin's in the Netflix series just because of continuity and the order of how everything goes, there are ways of working around things, and Shonda Rhimes and her writing team are phenomenal writers, and they know how to get the best parts of all the books and make them work in a way that everything makes sense. And in this case, we didn't need to see all the experiences that Benedict has gone through in order to get a little bit of that overhearing and confrontation on Colin and Penelope's end. The second clip we got was of Penelope complimenting Colin. They both get flustered, and she writes it off as an example of what someone would say if they were courting. But I think that really popped into his head as, holy crap, this girl really sees me, and the way she's speaking to me right now is putting things in my head that I haven't had before. And in my opinion, this is the part of the book that the series is paralleling, where Colin all of a sudden figures out, hey, I think I might like this girl, like actually like her. But I have not much else to say about that clip because it's out of context for me and out of context for most people, but you can see how she genuinely cares about him, and he is having like a brain blast epiphany coming to him, saying she might be the romantic interest that you haven't been looking for but is right in front of you anyway. Mind you, Colin, throughout his entire book and throughout his brothers and sisters' books up until this point, was not interested in marriage. And in the Netflix series with Marina Thompson, that was a creative choice that they made because he has not expressed interest in the marriage market up until this point. In fact, he still didn't express interest in the marriage market even in his own book until he started harboring feelings for Penelope while she was looking for a suitor. The next book in the series is Eloise's book called To Sir Philip with Love. Sir Philip, if we're remembering some plot points from The Duke and I on Netflix, is the brother of the man that Marina fell in love with and fell pregnant with. Marina's lover passes away, and his brother, Philip Crane, takes the responsibility of raising his brother's children, marries Marina, and they move to his home not too far away from Aubrey Hall, the country home of the Bridgertons. A lot of Eloise's story has to do with behind-the-scenes things in Penelope's story, so I love that we're getting a few callbacks here and there. So, until next time, this is Gohar.